Hi everyone, today we're going to do some examples on how we rearrange equations into slope-intercept form. So, when we rearrange an equation so that the y is by itself, we say the equation is written in slope-intercept form. Okay, and so this is going to be helpful later when we're graphing lines that look like this form. This is slope-intercept form, the y equals mx plus b. So right now we just want to get our equations into that form, and then later we'll use that form to graph. So again, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, so it might look like, for example, y equals negative 2x plus 1, or y equals 3/4 x minus 5. But really the big thing here is that we need to get that y all by itself on one side of the equal sign. So I don't want anything on the same side of the equal sign with the y. So we're going to go through a few problems here, and I'll cut out a few of these, but we're going to go through just to get an idea of how this works. So it asks us to write the following equations in function form. Really, function form is just another word for this slope-intercept form. So that means that our goal is to get y by itself. So when I look at a problem, what I always do is I find out where the y is. So in this case, my y is right there. If I want the y to be all by itself on this side of the equal sign, that means anything else that's on the same side needs to move. So in this case, the 2y I want to stay, but I want to move this 3x. So we're going to use a lot of the skills that we learned in Chapter 1 with solving equations to help us do this. So since this is a positive 3x, I'm going to subtract 3x. And I need to do that on both sides. Now there's two things I want to point out. Notice I didn't write minus 3 because that's not what I'm doing. I'm subtracting 3x, so I wrote minus 3x. Now, over here, I didn't put the minus 3x under the 8 because these two terms aren't like terms. This one has an x, the minus 3x, and the 8 does not. So they can't go together. So I'm just reminding myself that they're not going to be able to go together. So now what's going to happen is these two terms are going to cancel, and I'm going to bring down my 2y. Now, when we said slope-intercept form, notice that that term with the x is going to come first. So I'm going to grab my minus 3x and put that first. And then I'm going to take the 8, since this is a positive, it's going to be plus 8. Now my y is almost by itself, but I have this 2 in front. Since this is 2 times y, I'm going to divide by 2 to get rid of that coefficient. And I'm going to do that for all three terms. So now this is going to cancel. I have y equals, I'm going to leave the coefficient of x as a fraction. So negative 3 over 2 times x, and then 8 divided by 2 is going to give me a positive 4. Now my equation is in slope-intercept form, that y is all by itself. All right, let's look at another one. I guess I don't need to move the page. All right, for number 2, same thing. I'm going to find my y, and I notice here that my y is right here. And again, I ultimately only want my y on that side of the equal sign. So what I'm going to do is I need to move this negative 2x over. I want to get that away from the y. Since this is a negative, I'm going to do the opposite and add 2x to each side. Again, I wrote my x to show that I'm adding 2x, and I put this off to the side to remind myself that I just can't add those together. So this is going to cancel. I'm going to bring down my positive 3y. Again, I'm going to grab the term with the x in it, and I'm going to write that first. So 2x And then I have a positive 6. So now we've got one more step to go. I'm going to divide by 3 to get y all by itself. That means I had to divide each term by 3 to keep this in balance. So now I have y equals, again, I'm just going to keep this as a fraction, 2 over 3 times x, and then 6 divided by 3 is going to give me plus 2. All right, we're going to skip number 3 because this is essentially the same problem. Let's actually just go down to number 6 and we'll finish up there. All right, so for number 6, again, I'm going to find my term with the y. There it is. I know that everything else on the same side of the equal sign as that y needs to move over, which means this 3x has got to go. Since this is a positive 3x, I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. When these cancel, I'm left just with 1/3 y equals, now in this case I have a minus 3x, that's going to go first, and then I'm going to grab this negative 7 here, and that'll be my next term. Now, here I have to be a little bit careful. I have 1/3 times y. In order to get rid of this, I could divide by 1/3, but dividing by 1/3 is going to make my right side a little bit messy over here. So, dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to make a note here. Dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Oops, and this is going off the page. Let me scooch this so you can see it. So instead of dividing by 1/3, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, this reciprocal means that we just flip the fraction. So instead of 1/3, I would have 3/1. I know 3/1 is just the same as 3. So I'm going to multiply on this side by 3, but that means I also have to multiply everything on the right side of the equation by 3 as well. So now this is just going to give me 1, so I get y by itself. When I distribute, I have to multiply this by both terms inside. So 3 times a negative 3 gives me a negative 9x. 3 times a negative 7 gives me a negative 21. And now I have my equation in slope-intercept form. So we'll be working on an activity to practice with this tomorrow in class. Don't worry about filling out 3, 4, and 5. We can revisit those in class to start if we need to. All right, see you tomorrow.